there's IPAs, there's hazy IPAs, but have you ever had a mediocre hazy IPA? Because that's what we're brewing today. Mediocre beer is one of those styles that I've brewed many times. You could say I'm an expert in mediocrity. The Mediocre Hazy IPA is a distinct subcategory of IPA, recognized by its distinct lack of off flavors, and distinct lack of on flavors too. By the end of this video, hopefully you will be able to produce an ordinary, average, plainly mediocre beer such as this. Subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want more mediocre content. So let's do it. Mediocre Hazy IPA. Now, the key to brewing a classically mediocre beer is not to use bad ingredients. No, that's how you make bad beer, or disappointing beer, which are styles that I'm sure to cover in future videos. No, the key to brewing a mediocre beer is to start with high quality ingredients. It's what you do with those ingredients that makes all the difference. So let's get brewing. This recipe is fairly simple. Basically just 2-row pale malt with some flaked oats, just to add a little bit of extra protein concentration to contribute to haze. I don't want to be too fancy here, so I'm just going to go with the most basic mash schedule, 152 Fahrenheit for 60 minutes. After mashing, sparge to bring up to a pre-boil volume of 6.3 gallons. Then we'll heat it up to a boil. 60-minute countdown begins at boil. Which brings us to our first hop additions of 1 ounce Citra at 10 minutes left in the boil, and then 2 ounces of Amarillo at 5 minutes to go. Now, one of the keys to brewing a mediocre beer is to target the right flavor profile. You don't want your beer to be too flavorful. In my opinion, when you're brewing a hoppy beer, you should generously add lots of hops. When you're brewing something fruity, add lots of fruit flavor. Don't be timid or shy if you have a feature flavor. Make sure that flavor shines through. Go big or go home. When your friends taste your tropical Belgian blonde ale, they should say, "Dang, that's a tropical Belgian blonde ale. Definitely tropical, definitely Belgian, definitely blonde. You nailed it. Thanks." But today we're brewing a mediocre beer, so we're going to make sure to add insufficient amount of feature flavors, and at the wrong time, so that our friends will say, yeah, meh, it's alright, I don't know, Perfect. For those of you making a delicious hazy IPA, if that's what you're into, probably increase that hop amount and add some at flameout and at the cool down phase too, just so that you get extra noticeable hop flavor. For mediocre brewers out there, just leave it, it'll be fine, whatever. It seems the BJCP doesn't yet have a category for mediocre beers, which tells me that I'm at the cutting edge of brewing innovation. So I'll just go ahead and add this as category 45, mediocre beer. Exceptionally average, beery taste. You're welcome. After our measly hop additions, boil is done, and we're going to bring this down to target pitch temperature for our yeast, which in this case is White Labs London Fog. Now, London Fog is one of my favorite yeasts for making delicious hazy IPAs. It's got that right fruity ester smell, velvety, and it's good at keeping the haze. Hopefully it'll work for mediocre beers too. Now, the question of whether to make a yeast starter depends on the level of mediocrity you're shooting for. Original gravities greater than 1.060 generally require a second pack of yeast, or a starter to be made for healthy fermentation, which is what I did. If you're finding your beer is getting too good, consider underpitching your yeast as a way to fix that. So we'll pitch the yeast, and we're done. For good hazy IPAs, and good beer in general, keep it within the right temperature range, out of sunlight, no temperature fluctuations. I use a fridge heat mat combination with an Inkbird controller. But for mediocre beers, just don't worry about it. Another key part of hazy IPAs is dry hopping, which is tossing hops into the fermenter while the yeast is still working. When doing so, oxygen exposure can change the flavor and color of the beer, making it darker and duller. Generally important for most beer styles, extra super duper important for hazy IPAs. Dry hopping too early may mean a lot of the hop aromas can just be bubbled away. But dry hopping too late may mean you don't have enough time to get all the hop flavor and aroma mixed into your beer. Also, it helps if the yeast is still producing CO2, so it can clear out any oxygen that you've introduced. For this beer, I'm going to add dry hops too early, before peak fermentation, so that the yeast can bubble away all the nice flavors and aromas. Post-fermentation, and we're going to send it all to a keg. Again, less oxygen means brighter colors. You can do that by filling the keg with CO2 and purging it a couple times to flush out the oxygen. Once the beer is in, connect the gas line and purge it a couple more times to make sure that the only gas in there is CO2. Carbonation is 2.4 volumes, 10.8 psi at 39 Fahrenheit for 10 days or so. Original gravity 1.052, final gravity 1.008, delivering a middle-of-the-road ABV of 5.8%. Obviously, I missed my targets because I'm an amateur making mediocre beer. Which brings us back to today. We ended up with some pretty great color. Completely hazy, probably a nicer color than the mediocre beer style calls for. I suppose I did a greater job minimizing oxygen than I thought. So let's check the aroma, which is a major part of this beer. Yeah. Not bad, not bad. Not good either. Maybe some hints of tropical fruit or citrus. Or maybe not. Yeah. Perfect. Taste? Yeah, I can definitely tell that this is beer. Ordinary beer. Not disappointing or bad. No noticeable bad flavors. Or good ones either. Just kind of meh. A bit of hop burn or astringency. Probably because I didn't remove the hops or rack the beer off the hops, which is often a good idea. If I ordered this at a restaurant, I wouldn't send it back, but I wouldn't enjoy it either. I would just reluctantly drink it slowly and then politely order something else. Classic mediocre. So, what do you think? Any good?
The aromas, the taste, and the mouthfeel are all very mediocre. Quite plain. I have never had such an ordinary, forgettable beer before. It's neither delicious nor terrible.
Excellent. Great.
I would congratulate you, but congratulations are for winners. So I will simply say, I acknowledge that this is beer, and I have decided not to throw it out. Instead, I'll drink it slowly with a neutral expression on my face.
Okay, great. Thank you. Join me next time for some more mediocre beer content. Cheers.